The world is waking up, and you finding your way here today is no coincidence. The spirit world always has a way of guiding us where we most need to be at the absolute perfect time. I'm your host, Lindsay Morlock, and you're listening to the Guided Podcast, where we explore how the spirit world works on our behalf to guide us along our paths. This is where you'll learn how to live a life that is both conscious and connected, so you can supercharge your pathway to healing and open to life's magic and miracles. Come along this journey to see how guided you truly are. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Guided Podcast. We are back this week with Catherine Ann, our resident intuitive astrologer who incorporates her background in tarot, channeling, and the healing arts in her uniquely guided approach to reading the messages in the stars. So she is here this week again to shed light on the upcoming new moon in Leo, which is happening on August 4th. So Catherine, welcome back. And I'm just going to turn it over to you to get right to it.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. So I'm just going to do a quick little recap on the energies from June and July because some heavy hitter energies have been going on. And as a reminder, we had two full moons in Capricorn. And in that second full moon in Capricorn, we talked about a second chance, a second opportunity to you were given the information maybe at that first moon in Capricorn, but you weren't really necessarily ready to deal with it yet. It felt better to maybe put some rose colored glasses or blinders on. But then we hit the full moon in Capricorn in July, and it's like, ready or not, we're moving. This is it's time to let go of this. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it's a beautiful setup for this new moon in Leo in August. Just 2 weeks later, we have this really beautiful, pure new moon in Leo. Leo is a sign that is ruled by the sun, and it really speaks to the heart space. So, what we were asked to let go of with that Capricorn full moon in June and July, we're now ready to say, okay, I've let this go because I'm ready to move forward. And it's really interesting. So, this Leo new moon in general is going to seek self expression. It's going to seek leading with the heart. And so that's really the theme of this new moon. It's lead with your heart. So, what happened over the past couple months? We could actually even go all the way back to that eclipse in Aries in April, because that was very closely tied to the North Node, which is in Aries. And in this Leo new moon, the North Node comes into play again. So we could all go all the way back to April. Was there something that came up in April with that eclipse that was speaking to your heart about you wanting to express yourself fully? And now we've been through a lot of energy. July had a lot of heavy hitters energetically with shifts and changes. So I know we've only really talked about the lunations, but there were some other big things. Mars Uranus conjunction, just a lot of things going on that are about letting go, shifting, ready or not. So now we're in this new moon in Leo, and it's let's plant a seed to really follow what our heart wants us to follow, because we just released something really deep in the full moon in Capricorn where we talked about Pluto is the depths and Mars was helping pull that out and remove something really deep that you're ready to let go of. So you've let go, you've created space, that phrase of, so now we're going to plant something new that's coming from our heart instead of coming from our pain body, because that's what we worked on releasing with Pluto. So, some of the things that we need to think about is our heart is not our mind. So, what do we want to plant? What do we want to manifest? What do we want to bring about from our heart space? Not what we should do, not what we think is good, not what seems reasonable and appropriate, but what does our heart really say? This is what I need. This is what's going to light me up. This is what's going to help me feel like me. That's the intention setting for this month with this lunation. And so we're going to plant the seed. We're going to watch it grow over the next 6 months. But there's a really interesting energy about this new moon. And I'm only talking about a few of the aspects, but over and over again, the message I kept getting with all these different aspects was this is like a fresh start, as if there was the first half of the year and now we're going into the second half of the year. And this July period was the culmination of the movement, the catharsis, the the deep letting go of something that needed to be shifted. And the image that spirit gave me was almost like if you had a crust around your body and you were cracking off that crust. Now you can shine brightly. You're going to set intentions to allow your full light to shine.
It's like we're a hard-boiled egg and that like shell is cracking and right, our inners now are coming through.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So the question that I have for you is, because Spirit gave me that image of this crust breaking off, is did the intense energy of the past month or so shake off that crust? Can you think about where you had deeply held desires that you haven't been allowing yourself to express because the should or the stories you were told from the past or the fears or whatever it was that told you that's not okay? Hopefully, this kind of unsettling, intense energy that had happened over July shook that enough to crack that shell and help you say, I've got to be me. And it's okay to release what trauma or fear was holding you back.
Yeah, I think the image and the downloads that I'm getting are to really support what you're saying also or add to it is really reflective of where are we arguing for our limitations, right? So like where is our heart connected to this isn't working anymore. My heart desires something else, and where am I telling myself that this is the way it has to be right now and
Mhm,
that the magic and miracles spirit can work up, we're not in belief of. We feel like,
mhm,
well, we've got a laundry list of excuses, which are really fears, right? That tell us why this
mhm,
can't happen or that can't happen, no matter how rational they might be. But it really feels like that's what you're saying. Like, really connect
mhm.
with what do we really want? And what are we telling ourselves about why that can't happen right now? Is that accurate?
100%. And these full moons in Capricorn were the energetic processes that help break that open. Because remember that Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. There can be a lot of shoulds with Saturn. But this last one had Pluto right there saying, no, we're pulling out from the depths these fears so you don't keep arguing for your limitations is the perfect way to say it because we're going to let go of that and now feel what you really want. What is your true heart's desire? So now is the time in this August new moon to lean into that. Ask the universe to support you in realizing your heart's desire. And for some of us, that might have been buried so deep we didn't even know it until the last couple weeks, or we're getting an inkling of it. And for others, it's been there for a long time. We've just been covering it with our crust of fear.
Yeah, and let's acknowledge for people too your heart's desire, because I think sometimes our ego makes our heart's desire to be some grandiose thing, and so it might be a new career or a new job or something that's really big, but maybe it's something different. Like maybe it's a small situation that you're getting clarity on that you're like, oh, I don't desire what I'm currently experiencing, no matter how small or how big that actually is. So I don't want people to discount the little things because sometimes our heart's desire is something that's literally right in front of us that we're just overlooking or squashing because we feel like our circumstances can't change in this moment for a whole host of egoic but very rational lies, right?
Absolutely. And so that's really important because so Leo, the energy of Leo is big, right? You think of this proud, strong lion. That's a big, powerful energy. But not everything has to carry that energy. It's an allowed energy in this Leo that, stereotypically Leos are big and loud and playful and bright, exuberant.
Well, it's the
Um,
lion, right? So it's like the roar of the lion. Like that's
mhm.
what it's like. Yeah, boisterous.
Yeah, yeah. So remember, we've talked a lot about new moons are seed planting times. So we're setting an intention. We're not roaring out into the world. We're not taking this massive action. We're saying, I want to say we're acknowledging like what we've been through over the last few months, and in particular this last month, has helped us gain a clarity on who we are, what we want, what makes us happy, where's our light. And for some, that light doesn't need, they're saying it doesn't need a podium. It needs you to just acknowledge it and
Yeah.
say, this is me. This is who I am.
I think one
And
of that is one of the most underrated things, like allow your heart to feel heard and acknowledged by you, right? First and
mhm.
foremost, that's like essence of emotional intimacy with the self, is like, what is your own heart calling for you to see and acknowledge within yourself?
And it's so beautiful that you brought up the big or the small, because is that something as simple as your heart is saying you need to interact with nature in order to feel aligned? And that doesn't mean you need to go on some grand trip through the rainforest. It could simply mean taking a moment out of each day to go for a walk or observe from your window, sit by a tree, connect with something that your heart is nourished by. And so that's part of what this is in this new moon, is having that clarity of, what does my heart feel nourished by? So, and then ask the universe for help, because they've set up this beautiful process, right? Each time I go through and analyze each of these charts, I'm constantly amazed at the development of how, from, one week to the next, so the universe is setting up these energies to support us in our growth. And so we may not always be in a place where we've gained the clarity and we've felt it, because for whatever reason, life was more blustering than we could hear and it was harder for us. That's not to worry about. What's ours will never pass us by, right? We will always be given this opportunity again. But also realizing the universe is beautifully setting up this process for growth and alignment on a repetitive, cyclical basis. And we can choose to harness it, or we can choose to wait till the next time it comes around.
I feel like it's always better when we take advantage of these opportunities when they're right here, right now, because we don't know when the next time is that we're going to have the opportunity to heal whatever is right here on our plate. And so I feel like
Mhm.
I always encourage people to lean in where you are.
Absolutely. And that cycle is not necessarily just the next Leo moon, right? It could be 4 or 5 years from now. So yes, absolutely lean in. The message I got was like, dare to lead with your heart. So have that Leo strength of being daring and bold to stand in who you are. That's what this Leo new moon gives us the opportunity to plant a seed of intention about. Not asking you to get up and shout from the mountaintops. This is an internal situation that you're going to recognize what you need. And then additional support is being offered. I mentioned earlier that the North Node is activated again with this. So the North Node is in trine. So that's a harmonious aspect with this sun and moon. And basically, the North Node has been in Aries for about the past year or so. And Aries is about self, it's about being courageously independent and determined. And so, with that North Node activation from the April eclipse, there was an element of, what do I need? Like, eclipses are kind of a catalyst moment. So, there's that draw with the North Node towards independence, towards being courageous and determined. Aries is ruled by Mars, so it's this very active, fiery, independent. But that's a long process. It's not, there's a lot more involved. It's not just like flip a switch and now we're courageous and independent,
Yeah.
right?
And is our north node, is that our like our north star? Does that reflect our true north, or what is the north node in the context of this?
So there's different interpretations depending on the type of astrology you study and follow. So what I'm going to talk about is kind of like the traditional perspective, which is, there's the idea of the dragon, and the north node is the head of the dragon. And the south node is the tail. So the north node is the dragon's mouth, and it's kind of this insatiable beast. So while yes, the North Node is your drive and what you're wanting to move towards, it is also an insatiable beast, which means you could be mistaken that if you only go towards your North Node, now you're going to be happy. And that's not necessarily the case if you look at it from the traditional perspective, because it's insatiable. So you will constantly be driving your way towards that, and it'll be never enough. And then the South Node, the tail, is where we release and we let go. So the South Node, they're on an axis. So it's the Aries Libra axis right now. That happens about in an 18-month cycle. So the South Node has been in Aries. And so that's where things are being released, either literally letting go of things out of our life, people, places, jobs, or emotions, patterns. Depends on where it is in your chart to kind of like the specific topic it's going to speak to and what other planets you may have activating it. But I have an interesting example of this, of how it worked in my life. So for me, the South Node is in my 10th house, house of career, and the North Node is Aries is in my 4th house. So I'm very career driven. Capricorn rising, I have a lot of shoulds around how I should behave at work. Very close to the eclipse. The eclipse in March was actually activated with the South Node. I had an opportunity to travel out of the country for a month, and in doing so, had to take off my last week of work before I would have gone on break. Normally, something I would never in a million years ever allow myself to do. But I really did see how that South Node activation in my career house allowed me to let go and like let go of I have to, I should, and allowed me to pursue adventure and pursue something exciting. So that's an example of like the letting go and the moving. So in this case, the North Node is in a very harmonious aspect. It's called the trine and with the new moon. And it's basically just adding an additional layer of motivation to follow your heart. I mentioned how this kind of keeps coming up. So there's this nice sextile aspect with Mars, which also is a positive relationship that is saying action, move towards something. Then there's this trine with the North Node in Aries ruled by Mars, action, move towards something. But yet we're not quite going to take action because it's a new moon. The action is the seed planting, but it is still that movement towards be more me. That's where the movement is. It's be more me. I'm allowed to be more me. And I'm going to set intention to ask the universe to help me step more and more into my light over the course of the next 6 months.
And isn't it interesting that these last two full moons in Capricorn were really giving us two opportunities to release patterns, things that we've been maybe working on for a while as we now step into this new moon and able to plant more intentions. Because I don't know how other people feel, but I know for me, I felt these last two moons very intensely. And many people I talked to were having a lot of physical symptoms too, like some dizziness or exhaustion or, all sorts of different things. It felt like I don't have a lot of moons affect me to the level this particular moon affected me physically. And I felt a lot of people I was in connection with were also talking about that. But I think this is where the planet's moving. It's like letting go of all of this old patterning and conditioning and all of these old identities that are cultural conditioning so that we are free to step into more of who we actually are.
Absolutely. And which is why it's so beautiful how this gets set up, because it is very hard to shine our light under the muck of patterns and programs. And so having that support, and at the last one I said catharsis, ready or not, for some of us probably was not very comfortable, and for others it was like, okay, I know it's coming, I'm in. But either way, there's that breaking and letting go of stuff that no longer serves you. And I agree, I feel like that's where we're moving as a collective, is more awareness, higher consciousness, more sensitive to needing to be who we are and not conform for conforming. Back again to all of this is 2024 part 1, and now we're moving into 2024 part 2. And it really is a dramatic shift in energy astrologically, and it's something that we can be really happy about, that we have this opportunity. We went through kind of all this stuff, and now we have this opportunity to really focus on what makes me happy, what lights me up. I'm going to set intentions that way. That doesn't mean there's not going to be more stuff that comes up, right? We have Pluto is going to retrograde back into Capricorn at the 29th degree. It's going to reactivate that full moon from July that was at Capricorn 29 degrees. So it'll come back around again. It always does, where we get another little chance. But it's like the light at the end of the tunnel, or the star you're following. You see where you're going. So a couple other things that are really supportive with this new moon. Pluto's not as tightly in play with this new moon as it was a couple weeks ago with the Capricorn new moon, but it is still in opposition. So it's wider, it's a whole sign opposition. But basically, to me, what that suggests is that breakthrough or catharsis that we were going through is part of what is inspiring the actions or the intentions for this new moon. So they just feel very linked. Remember that these energies, you don't necessarily feel them exactly on the day of the moons, right? Maybe a few days before, a few days after. But if you kind of take that global perspective of what have you moved through in July that's now lighting up where you want to go, this catharsis, this transformation is still being supported by the power of Pluto. In addition, we just are finishing up a Uranus square Venus transit that we talked about in the last lunation. And so that had maybe some inspiration. You might have felt a little inspired to do something that other people didn't think made sense. We talked a lot about getting a tattoo, as other people maybe didn't understand, those type of things. But this is at the tail end, this energy. It ends the next day after the new moon, but still it's that inspired feeling. So maybe you're bringing in something you were inspired into this seed planting energy of the new moon, not taking action on it necessarily. Just it's all kind of like, I have this vision of like it's part of your intention prayer, or it's your list of like what you want to bring in, what you're hoping to bring in. And then the other thing, and I actually wanted to talk about this mostly when we look at the signs, is Venus has been transiting Leo. So this new moon is in Leo. Venus has been transiting Leo since July 12th, and it will move. Its last day in Leo is on August 5th, so right after this new moon. But Venus transiting Leo is really an invitation for us to shine. So yet again, we have this support from the universe saying, time to shine. And it encourages us to be our true self. It motivates a deeper connection with our creativity, with a love for life, with our playfulness, all Leo qualities, right? And that's what this new moon is doing as well. So we've had this beautiful, even though there's been some things that have happened in June and July, we have this beautiful second half of July, first week of August, Venus going through Leo, still supporting that we just need to be who we are. We just need to shine. In addition to the new moon in Leo, there's another very important situation in the sky that's going on, which is the Lion's Gate portal. So some of you may be familiar with it because you've heard of Lion's Gate on 8/8, August 8th, the 8th month. It's all in relation to Lion's Gate. But Lion's Gate is actually a portal that lasts over a period of time. It's not just a one day. The 8/8 is considered the peak, but it actually starts in mid-July. And it's this annual cosmic alignment where the sun is in Leo and it is in alignment with the star Sirius, Orion's belt, which is 3 stars, and the Earth. And you may be familiar with the 3 pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And during this time period, they actually line up perfectly with the tips of the 3 pyramids. And the time of Lion's Gate, one of the things that's most important about it back in the Egyptian times, and I'm assuming way earlier, is that for a while, Sirius is not visible in the sky. And Sirius is considered the second sun. It's the brightest star we have in the sky. And so Sirius is a really important star to the ancients. Why it was so important to the Egyptians is because when Sirius rose into the sky out of its depth, it signified that was when the Nile was going to flood. And so it was representative of abundance and fertility and manifestation, because it literally created the fertile crescent of the Nile when the Nile flooded. And created great crops or land for growing great crops. So it was a very important time for that reason, for a very practical reason. And also, as they follow all the stars and see this in ancient civilizations everywhere, that these great monuments align with astrological cosmic events. And so this is just one of those times. So the reason why it matters to us now is that Sirius still represents abundance and manifestation. It always happens during this time of Leo. And so it started in mid-July. It'll start waning in mid-August. Sirius will still be up in the sky, but this 3 to 4 week portal will close out. And what's really important about it is it creates this gateway that floods light codes onto the planet. So it's really interesting if you've been following all the solar flares and flashes and the auroras that have been happening all around. Makes me wonder if we're going to have more, even more, because Lionsgate is associated also with the number 8, because August is the 8th month of the year. Often you may hear of 8/8 as the Lionsgate day because that's the pinnacle of Lionsgate. But what's really exciting about this year is that 2024 numerologically is an 8 year. So now we're going to have 8/8/8. So it's this triple 8. Numerologically, this is super exciting. But what it does is it makes an even more powerful Lionsgate portal. And that 8 number in numerology is all about abundance. So here we come again with abundance and manifestation and fertility. It just keeps repeating over and over again through the 8, through the story of Sirius. And then if we talk about the Leo new moon, that's talking about let's follow our heart. Let's shine. Happening during this beautiful time of Lionsgate. Let's really bring in the light codes and the energy of Lionsgate to help us in this intention setting. Because what it's helping us do is on a much grander scale, harness the energy of the universe to support us in shining our light. So another thing that's really interesting about Lionsgate that I just love, because Lionsgate is cosmic, not necessarily astrological transit, but it is a cosmic alignment. And then the 8/8 is not astrological, that's numerology. So it's interesting how these all are weaving together. But Lionsgate is also about self-awareness and transforming old fears to live an authentic life from the heart. And again, we get the repetition of everything we've been talking about. So I kind of feel like if Spirit wanted to hit us over the head with a hammer, this is what they're doing. Releasing our fears so we can live authentically from our heart. This building of support for that. So perfectly timed Capricorn full moons in alignment with Pluto, who is the great transformer from the depths. And now we're going to be more self-aware and live in our light. So really important element of this new moon is that it falls during this Lionsgate period. You can bring that into your manifestations. You'll also notice, if you can see the image behind me of the lion, that I have the infinity symbol under her upper throat, and that's the 8 turned on its side. So it's just another representation of infinite flow. The universe has infinite abundance for us to tap into and access that flow and not limit that flow. And so that's just another visual to remember the power of this 8 time, the power of Lionsgate, the power of Leo, and living from your heart.
So as we wrap up today's show, what is the bottom line or kind of the main headlines that you want to leave people with? And, what would you say to help people in supporting intention setting for this new moon?
Yeah, I think bottom line is lead with your heart. As I mentioned, that is the theme before. It all comes back to shine bright. And in order to shine bright, you have to lead with your heart. And we've been through a lot. And this is a beautiful opportunity for us to kind of like emerge from the rubble of whatever we've been letting go of for the past few months, the kind of intensity of July, and rise and shine and be daring in your intention setting. This is not something you have to share with anybody else. So be as bold and daring as you can be, because this is between you and spirit, and set those intentions to shine as brightly as you can, and the universe will support you.
Touche. So we will wrap up there. Catherine, as always, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you listening, thank you as always for continuing to show up every single week. And you can find more information about how to connect with Catherine in the show notes. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Guided Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or even leave me a review so we can ensure that it makes its way into the ears of listeners who need to hear these messages most. Until next time, may you remember how guided you truly are.